Okay, we are now
right. Okay, let's get started. I will call the Citizens Association of Santa Clara County Board of Directors meeting to order at 7:11 p.m. Shali, can you please take roll?
Yes. And Ivy. I thought I was promoting Councilmember Ivy, the panelist, but she is online.
I just started.
Yeah.
Are we able to promote her?
I did, but it's not.
Sounds like it must be attending remotely.
Yes.
Promoting
Yeah, she's in Campbell, it says.
Can I count her as present? Sheila Mohan.
J.R. Fruin in for Sheila Mohan.
Lisa Fliger.
Here.
Stanley Mock.
Present.
Matthew Hudes.
Here.
Carmen Montano.
Here.
Javed Alahi.
Present.
Mark Turner.
Here.
Margaret Abikoga. Here. Greer Stone. Rosemary Kamei.
Here.
Kathy Watanabe.
Here.
Tina Walia.
Here.
Larry Klein.
Here.
We have Mark.
Thank you, Shali. And so welcome to our August Citizens Association Board meeting. Welcome back. Hope everybody had a good summer break. For those city councils that do take a break, looking at you, Sunnyvale. And of course, special welcome to the city of Morgan Hill. Thank you, Mayor Turner, for hosting us.
Thank you for being here.
We said we would come and we did.
Thank you for
So
that.
thank you for helping us make it happen.
Thank you.
So with that, let's move to any public comment on non-agenda items.
There's no public.
And I don't see any in the room, so we'll move to the agenda. First item is our consent agenda, and the only item we have are our minutes from our last special meeting on June 13th, 2024. Do we have any questions, comments on this item? If not, I will look to the board members for a motion to approve the consent agenda, and we'll go to a vote. And attorney, do we have to do a roll call vote because we have members online?
Motion to approve the minutes.
Go ahead.
Sure. So I had a question. So I had requested that we bring the ambulance services, the county to do a presentation. I see it wasn't on the agenda. Is there a reason for that?
So it will be on the September agenda, correct, Shali?
Correct.
Yes.
All right.
And because that meeting will be back in Los Altos, and for different reasons, we've agendized it for September. We didn't forget. So any more questions or comments? Seeing none, we have a motion by Walia, seconded by Montana. Shali, can you please call the roll?
Yes. I'm going to call you by city. I'm still trying to work out what.
Oh, there's.
Oh, there she's perfect. Campbell. Councilmember Biden, you're.
Yes. I'm trying to log on.
You're on. We can see you. Perfect. Cupertino.
Yes.
Los Altos.
Yes.
Los Altos Hills.
Yes.
Los Gatos.
Yes.
Milpitas.
Yes.
Juan de Sereno.
Yes.
Morgan Hill.
Yes.
Mountain View.
Aye.
San Jose.
Yes.
Santa Clara.
Yes.
Saratoga.
Aye.
Sunnyvale.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Shali. Next, we will move to item number 2, which is the president update, and I will keep it brief because this is our first meeting since our mental health event. I just wanted to acknowledge and thank all the board members, all the council members were able to attend. It was a successful event, both in attendance and also what we're able to cover. And I can't tell you the number of thanks and praises the Cities Association received from that event. So thank you all so much for all the work that went into it. It was well received, and there's a lot more to be done. We talked about a couple more things we may do going forward at the LAC meeting earlier today, which we will share at a future board meeting. I also want to acknowledge and thank Shali, our executive director, for all her work to make the event a success and to go very smoothly. So thank you so much, Shali, for all your work. And so with that, we end. Okay, it is an agenda item, so I have to check if there are any public comments or questions on this item.
All right, no public comments online.
All right, so next we will move to item number 3, and it's an item we've been waiting on, and so I'm very happy that we are able to have Senator Bell join us in person. He's no stranger to any of us. The topic is Moendo, the Model Water Efficient New Development Ordinance. And I know this is an ordinance that has been discussed at many council meetings, and so we're very honored and excited to have someone here who's very knowledgeable that can talk more about this ordinance and answer the questions that I know we all have. I will do a brief bio, even though I know he needs no introduction, but it's something we do here, Jim. So I'll just do a quick bio. Senator Bell began his tenure on the Santa Clara Valley Water District Board of Directors in 2022. He represents District 4, which includes the city of Campbell, portions of the Willow Glen and Cambrian communities, North Almaden and Blossom Hill area of San Jose. In 4 decades of public service, first as a San Jose City Councilman from 1980 to 1994, then as a Santa Clara County Supervisor from 1994 to 2006, and I think we only overlapped by a year, Senator Bell, and finally as a legislator in the Assembly and Senate 2006 through 2020. Jim Bell has left his mark across the Silicon Valley and beyond. Thank you for being here, Senator Bell. It's up to you. If you stay where you are, you can present in front of us whatever is most comfortable.
Right here's good.
Okay, then I'll turn it over to you.
We have I'm doing just the talking, but I had the staff do all the work, so as usual, right? So we're gonna do a little slideshow. I think water conservation is something we all care about, you know. Especially in the last few decades, and especially when we talk about climate change, we have people that are all very anxiety ridden about it. So I think water is something that people are paying more attention to. Okay, so I wanted to tell you about what our water conservation as a way of life program will be. Okay, so go next one. First of all, we need everybody to save water. My wife and I dug up our lawn in the front yard and planted California native species, did kind of like we took the lawn out. We put a drip irrigation system to get the plants started. They're drought tolerant. So I think we're encouraging that, you know, just as a personal thing, I think it's a good ethical thing to do that everybody supports, okay? So our board of directors at the Water District adopted a resolution declaring that water conservation must be a way of life in Santa Clara County. And we're the ones responsible to develop the long-term water source. That's our job, okay? So we can't do it without the cities, counties, and states, of course. We're a special district. But our main job is to look at where the water comes from, okay? So when we look at where the water comes from, we pass an ordinance with permanent water waste prohibitions to ensure that water is a precious resource. It's not misused, even during non-drought periods. We have a ordinance to respond quickly to drought. So if there's a drought, you'll probably see us say, well, we got to do something right now because we need to act quickly because there's a drought, okay? You've had that in the past. The Water Board has called for mandatory water use reductions, ordinances that provide enforcement process, fines, all that kind of stuff. It's better to have voluntary commitment, and so far that's the way it's worked, okay? We always have some people that are outliers that don't. And a little general persuasion usually takes it, but sometimes people, it doesn't work, so you have to have some enforceable provisions, you know, to deal with that. You know, that's always something, that's a touchy area, but sometimes people just don't get it, you know. But we'll do our best to give them the facts and convince them. During periods when the Water Board has not called for a mandatory water use reduction, we have an enforcement process that includes notification and education for those reported to have violated water waste restrictions. You know, somebody gets out at 2 o'clock in the afternoon on a hot day and starts spraying water over the place. You're not supposed to do that, right? You know, try to do it cooler times. And we have water retailers that we work with on enforcement. Okay. On to site 3. We also have incentives. Okay. We have enforcement's not just the one thing we should do. We have like marketing approaches. This is where cities could fold in their mission as a municipal local government with the water district, encouraging people to save water, to do healthy watering, not overwatering. So that's something we encourage you to do in cooperation with us. In Santa Clara County, about half the water in a typical home is used outdoors. So you could do like, you know, there's a couple pictures. My front yard kind of looks like that, designed by my wife and I. We just kind of just sat down and decided what we want to do. We bought the native species at one of the nurseries. There's plenty of good nurseries around here that sell those kinds of water-wise plants. You can ask them for your professional advice on it. What we do is if you transition your lawns, this is one thing you should promote, is if we transition the lawns, we give people, and they're eligible for up to $3,000 of rebates from our landscape program. I mean, not too many elected officials know that. I'm kind of like, oh, really? Oh, $3,000, that's not a small amount of money. So we could, you know, if you're doing your own, you can do pretty good. Residents may be eligible for a free water waste outdoor survey. We'll send somebody out and they'll do a survey, how to save water and how to lower their water bill. So it's kind of like, we're not trying to add taxes, we're trying to save you money. Government should be doing more of that, right? I mean, we're trying to save you money. This is a good thing. So people are very receptive when we tell them what we're doing. Businesses also can save water and money by checking their facilities for leaks and then retrofitting their older buildings with new efficient fixtures and appliances. They get the rebate still. It's wonderful. People go, really? They're excited. They want to know more about it. Businesses can apply for the water efficient technology. It's called our WET program, which, now get this, provide up to $100,000 in rebates to businesses who plan to modernize their facilities with water saving technology. That's not a small chump change here, you know, it's good dollars. If you're into rainwater capture, which is another, you can use rain barrels We have a web page on that. You can do your home like what we do. We got the bucket. I don't know if you guys know this, but I have a family of 9 brothers and sisters. Mom and dad had an egg timer. I mean, you can't shower more than 3 minutes or else we won't have any hot water for everybody before they go to school. And there'll be family discord, right? So we had some really strict controls by the police enforcement unit in our house. So that could be done though in a nice way. There's other things you can do besides egg timers, and we reimburse you for it. So we help the homeowners with that. We have a website, watersavings.org, and you can see it at the bottom of the slide there. This is, I'll just say this. When people spend money on water conservation, it's money that they spend when they go to appliance stores, they go to your businesses, your local businesses. They don't go way far away for this stuff. They go down, they find the stuff, they get somebody local to do it, or they do it themselves by going to a do-it-yourself hardware store or landscape place, and they do it themselves. So they're putting money into the sales tax revenues for cities by doing water conservation programs. We should all encourage that. Now, we also offer grants. We have a grants program, an education program. We have a youth commission. So if you, I think we recently, and we stole one of the Campbell youth commissioners, who's now the water district youth commissioners from the city of Campbell. So a lot of the young people want to be involved in environmental issues. So these youth commissioners, it's very important. They're future leaders. Guess what, folks? I was a former youth commissioner appointed by Mayor Norman Mineta. Get that, folks, when I was on the city council. And, he always mentions that. Even when I was, up there in age, he kept saying, oh, he's one of my youth commissioners. Norm, I'm a senator now, Okay. We love him. But we also have a Water 101 Academy. You got somebody that's really interested in this and wants to help and get involved. We have a Water 101 Academy, and it's an online program. You can get the people to learn about what we're doing with water conservation. We have the Adopt a Creek. I did that in Campbell for 20 years. Clean the creek, you can get a group together, Adopt a Creek, clean it up. Valley Water Commission, it's 21. Every district has one. You might want to check it. You got some really environmentally oriented young person that wants to be on our commission. Talk to your water board member and they will get them on there. We have an advisory committee. We have advisory committees on public policies and so forth also. So please get involved. There's other ways to get involved. We have boards and commissions just like you do. Okay. Slide number 3. Let's talk about the ordinance specific. Now to do the water efficiency and conservation efforts, Valley Water continues to promote modern actions related to adoption of a model water efficiency and new development ordinance. So you look at when new development comes in, here's the water efficiency standards. Now you think, well, developers might not like this. No, that's not true. You know why? Because they save money. You're talking about helping them save money by having technology at their fingertips where they can figure out how to save money in their projects. And if you do help them, you can actually find a lot of reception. We have a Santa Cruz County Water Efficient Development Task Force that was created from cities, Valley Water, the county, joint venture, Sustainable Silicon Valley, et cetera. And we developed this ordinance. Now, I'm going to tell you something. With the climate change bond, It's gonna pass. It looks pretty good right now. It's at, like, the poll came out a couple days ago, 59% yes. It's got water conservation in it. We're real excited about, we think water conservation is probably the cheapest way of saving water, right? Not using water in the first place, right? It's a wonderful way of having a long-term economic future for our state and our cities by having the most efficient water use, and it's good for the economy that way because it saves people money. We're advocating water conservation ordinances to look at. There's going to be a 2025 building code adoption cycle that's going to have refinements to the language to reflect an up-to-date water efficiency standard. So, there's a building standards commission at the state. Okay, they created this building standard commission, and the reason they did that is they have a standard of building codes, plumbing code, building code, electrical code, and so forth. It's done that way because they allow you in your local area to have a little bit of flexibility in your local ordinances to adopt it with some amendments, but they're trying to get the building codes to be standardized. They're looking at a standardized water efficiency code. Okay, it's coming. So what does that mean? Well, I think it's better to get ahead of the curve as a city. Start your people and your businesses, figuring out from them what's the best way to do this, having your discussions, with the people that are providing the economic development in your community. So I think this water model code that we developed was done, and we finalized it in 2019. Now, we have a scope of it here. You can go through this. It's water efficiency. We have supplementals. I went to Las Vegas, once, and they have a park that's just to teach people about water conservation. And I had a kind of like, maybe that's something we ought to try doing, or each city might try to do a little part of their park area to show people more on an educational basis how to save water. What kind of landscaping, what kind of grass, how to do, irrigations, drip irrigations, the do's and don'ts. You guys know that I wasn't a elected official forever. I worked for the town of Los Gatos planning department and city of Santa Cruz planning department. I was a planner. That's what I did before I was elected. I don't know if people do that, but that's what I did. So I worked with the building officials, and in Santa Cruz, the guy that was the building officials was the chairman of the state building code, building standards commission. He was the chairman and head of the organization of building officials. So I think the building officials figure out like practical ways of doing these kinds of things, and it's something to work out. You could adopt your municipal code to do, like a Milpitas amendment for Mayor Montano, or Morgan Hill amendment. If you have recycled water, you want to do more of that. Kind of like work it to your little city preference. You can do modifications like that. They allow that. Okay. We would like people to look at the ordinance and adopt some kind of model ordinance with us. We have technical assistance and any kind of help. But this is coming down, especially if the water bond passes. I'm hearing that people are, well, we're going to do the water bond. We want to do, water conservation. We got to do retrofitting buildings. And, I looked at the ABAG 2050. Who's the ABAG representative here? You guys? Margaret? Okay, you're Nisha. Okay, ABAG 2050 has an environmental section, and there's a thing about water conservation in that, and it talks about retrofitting buildings. And it's a big dollar amount, but when you look at building codes and the valuation of the building, when they start building stuff, it's probably reasonable by 2050, you're going to see a lot of older buildings modernized or whatever. And when they do that when they get to that point where they got to do that, or a new company comes in, they want to fix up the building to their specifications. When you do that, it's the time to look at water conservation, include that in the building standard that you put in there. So I think retrofitting is very important. We will help, we will assist. I have a thing for questions. This is important. How many people are going to the Cal Cities annual conference this year? Okay. I am too. I've been awarded the President's Lifetime Achievement Award this year, so. And I was so proud. I told Mom that. She says, well, she says, I remember when you drove Norman Etta around in his car, and when you were a youth commissioner, and Uncle Norm was on, and he said, okay, we're going to go check the city out. And Norm he had like radios in his car, like, I know you mayors do this, so, hey, I want you to fix that pothole on this corner. He would say, hey, the signal light, there's something wrong with it over here. Norm would drive around the city, and I'd be the driver, and he'd be like on the radio. He had like all these CB radios. He had like 5 antennas on the back of his car. And he was absolutely amazing. And he always said, I'll leave this statement that he always had. The value system he had was, it's not about you as a politician or elected official, it's about us. It's about them. That's what Norm always said. And I told his son that, and Norm was my mentor, obviously. So he appointed me to the Youth Commission and the Goals Committee at San Jose, 1971. Okay. And in 1976, I became a planning commissioner in San Jose. 4.5 years later, I was elected to the council for 14 years. I chaired the transportation committee of the League of Cities for 6 years, California League, and I chaired the National League Committee for 4 years. Then I got on the Board of Supervisors, and then Assembly, Senate, and wrote a lot of legislation on infrastructure, including SB1, which helps you. And I think the League of Cities, I've always worked with them closely. I think there's partnerships that need to be A, maintained in a healthy way, and B, developed for the future needs of our community. Okay, healthy partnerships between governments. Healthy partnership is the way to solve problems. So I'm a committed healthy partnerships guy, whether it's water, homelessness, finances. I think it's always cheaper if we put our minds together and work together. It's going to save everybody a lot of money if we do that. So thank you very much. I'll answer any questions people have.
Thank you, Senator Bill, and what an amazing and productive career you had.
I wanted to show the Mayor Mark this. Show him this. He knows what that is. Tell him what that is.
You're going to have to tell us, Mark.
What it is.
You're on the spot.
Yes, of course.
He knows what it is.
This is very rare, actually.
Yeah,
It's
I know.
poppy jasper. This type of poppy jasper is really only found here in Morgan Hill.
That's right. Yeah. So I brought that for Mark to see. I know you have a big rock around City Hall here somewhere, right?
I'd like to think that.
Yeah. But my hobby is lapidary. So when I got on the water board, I said, okay, if you guys find any good stones like jade or, poppy jasper.
Poppy jasper up on El Toro,
See how beautiful it is?
Yeah.
That is very.
It's real, and it's funny when it's obviously when it's polished. And
Yeah, I polished it, that's what.
Yeah, yeah.
I have rings and stuff.
yeah, it's beautiful and but it's pretty rare and there are some places up on El
We
Toro.
can't tell people, Mark.
No, you can't. Did I say what I was gonna say? No, but you know me pretty well by surprise. If you make your way up there, you might find some shotguns coming out. Yeah.
See, the things we learn when we come to Morgan Hill.
Right. No, I just brought that because you guys are here in Morgan
No,
Hill.
well done.
Yeah,
Perfect.
that's great.
That's great. Because as you may know, we don't normally have our meetings here. This is the first time in
Yeah,
maybe
But not the last time.
forever, but not the last time, as Mark keeps saying. You know, Senator Val, everyone knows you, but I just realized you may not know everyone at the table. So I just want to do a quick introduction and I'll start with Council Member Vice Mayor Fruin. If you could introduce yourselves in the room and what city, just so you know who's in the room.
Vice Mayor Fruin from the city of Cupertino.
Rosemary,
Rosemary.
I know Rosemary.
Kathy Watanabe. Santa Clara.
Kathy, I work with Kathy. And worked with me in the city of San Jose when she was worked in the redevelopment agency. So I've known Ann for a long time. We worked together in San Jose City Hall.
And Campbell got a lot of recognition tonight, and
Hi.
Matthew Hughes, Los Gatos. I've known Senator Bell's family.
His dad, my dad and him have coffee every day. And maybe once in a while, when they deemed to let the junior come to.
Yeah.
I also cleaned the creek with him.
Yeah, we did the creek.
and I do want you to introduce your staff because, as you said, they do all the work.
Good
Tell them
evening,
about
everyone.
yourself,
Thank
tell
you.
them about yourself.
Oh, well, I actually, my name is Rosemary Boosborg. I am with Valley Water's Government Relations Office. And I actually have known Senator Bell for a very long time as well. I came from the state legislature before this job. So I work with Assembly Member Clara. So it's literally just 1 degree of separation from Senator Bell to everybody. He knows everybody. So it's great to come full circle again now that we're both retired from the state legislature and now I live on the one.
Some of my interns are state legislators now, like Aisha,
Yeah.
Thank you for being here.
I'm Jandy Quinn and I'm the legal counsel for this wonderful group.
Nisa, Los Altos Council Member.
Gina Wadia, City of Saratoga.
Stan Mock, Mayor, Los Altos Hills.
Yes.
We have people that we know.
Yes.
Mayor Montano, City of Memphis.
Mark Turner, Morgan Hill.
Larry Klein, Sunnyvale.
We're gonna make those on that with you. Shall we take executive director?
Yeah. Are they nice to you?
They're super nice. Oh my gosh.
Being recorded. Chair for being recorded.
City people are pretty cool.
City people are cool. I love my job.
Yeah.
I work with some very good.
This county has great cities. I mean, we have great city staff, very professional compared to other areas. It's wonderful. And it's lovely because they all have a motivation to work and produce the good for the community. And it's so easy to talk to people here compared to what I hear in other areas. So it's wonderful.
No, and this is a great group, Jim. We get requests all the time from different groups to present, and so we're so happy that we're able to have you present on the window and just hearing more about what Valley Water does in our community. I have a couple of questions, but I do want to open it up to the board members to see if they have any questions, and then the normal process, if you will remember, we'll do questions, public comment, and then just wrap up after any public comment. So let me open it up to the board to see if you have questions for Senator Bell.
I have a question. Thank you, Senator Bell, for your presentation. So artificial turf, what are your thoughts on that? Just, I mean,
It doesn't use
people
water.
want to take out their lawns, they couldn't.
It doesn't use water. My wife and I, we discussed it. We said, no, we want fresh planet. And we had to kill the lawn first. So we killed the lawn by putting just, plastic on top of it. He killed the roots and all that. And then we waited and we dug them all up, we had, you know, and then we went to a native plant nursery and planted the plants. She was a better artistic designer than me. I would kind of like to square, and she likes, you know, like better design. So we ended up having a pretty good result, but we
Because
talked about artificial. Sometimes if you have an area that's heavily used that people walk along, it might be okay compared to grass. It would probably look nicer.
So we do
And for
have-
businesses, sometimes it's better.
Yeah, we do have a lot of residents that convert they take out their grass and natural grass and put in artificial turf, because it looks nicer. The other question I have, so HOAs,
Yeah.
they're very strict. You're not allowed to make any changes. So is there going to be some type of law or some kind of mandate that says, hey, you know, HOAs, you need to change your way of thinking and allow the residents to put in drought tolerant plants or however they want? Because
Yeah.
right now, they're not allowed. They're very strict.
Yeah, they have controls over the landscape. You have to go to the HOA board.
Yeah, so,
Yeah,
so those are just food for thought. Maybe somebody can make
well,
that,
if
those
they can
changes.
all, you know, of course, the most obvious thing is if they can do it all at once and have a plan to convert, we
Yeah,
will provide, you know, rebates or assistance or, you know, all that kind of stuff to help them do that, okay? So if it's a big, you know, like apartment project or whatever, or condo, I think it's more complicated than just having a single family home, obviously. So we will help those people because the dividend, the savings is good. It's a very good dividend for us. We have looked at, you know, like where the water is used, you know, like it's like majority of the water on a residential is outdoor, you know, for most people, unless you're like a big family like mine was. But there's always potential to cut back, and the homeowners would get the dividend if we could do that. So it would be like something that would benefit them. And to me, with the rebates and benefiting them and improving their property values by retrofitting and upgrading and improving their property values, it's good for your finance department will love it. Your building department will love it. Your businesses, because most of the work is done by local people, not somebody from, you know, Arizona or someplace, you know, where they just take. And then a number of people that are employed in the landscaping business, it's a winner.
I get it. But again, as I mentioned, HOAs, they supersede some of the state or some of the city ordinances. So I'm just thinking,
Yeah.
somebody ought to challenge that, you know, that the way the HOAs are structured, that to allow homeowners to plant drought tolerant.
A little flexibility.
plants. Yeah. Anyway, I have other questions, but in the interest of time.
Yeah,
I'm
we
gonna
can
skip-
talk about thoughts on this, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I've heard of the carrot stick approach with HOAs too, where you encourage them to have it done as opposed to the stick approach, but that's a different topic for another meeting. Any other questions, Javed?
What are the biggest wastage of water in swimming pools?
What are the what?
What are the biggest wastage of water is in swimming pools? Because the water is constantly evaporating.
Well, there's ways of dealing with swimming pools by conserving the water better. Covers, other kinds of ways. I'm not the expert, but I've been told that there's ways of producing savings and also recycling the water. Like like recycling the water. Some of the new pools have these recycling processes in the pools. And that is something that would be a winner.
So we consider giving some incentives for people to do that, put in recycling or do other things to reduce the.
We would give it a rebate for that, right?
I
would work for that.
We'd have to double check to see if that would
Is that-
qualify.
to see if there's-
But one of the Moendo measures actually would be a requirement for a spa or pool cover. So if your city
Yeah,
does
that's
not yet
easy.
have that in your municipal code, that's a very easy one to implement.
Okay, so thank you, Javed. So I just have 2 questions and then we'll go to public comment. The first has to do with the rebate program. Is it available to residents in all our cities, all 15 cities?
All 15 cities in Santa Clara County, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And then with regards to the actual ordinance,
Yes.
do we have any Santa Clara County cities that have adopted this ordinance so far?
No,
Not yet, so.
that's why we're
it'll
talking
be the
here.
That's
first.
why you're talking to us, okay. And so could you walk
I
us
think,
through?
okay, the reason why I think now's the time to talk about it, I mean, when I got on the board, I asked a question, I said, well, has anybody ever talked to the cities about this? They said, no. I said, why don't you put me on the agenda of the Cities Association? So we just start talking about it. Okay, you know, it's a process, right? And your building officials can work with our people. Your process we could start, you know, start going on it. You know why we should start going on it? Because I'm pretty sure it's coming to, you know, you don't want another like this. I left the Senate and I was not happy with one thing about, I care deeply about housing. Okay, I lost my house when I was a kid. We had a fire burn down. We were homeless, 12 of us. Okay. And it took mom and dad, you know, a long time to recover. It was tough. Dad, you know, dad took the bus every day to work, right? He used to see dad every day. So dad sacrificed, we sacrificed. But, you know, housing is so important. And you don't know what the trauma is unless you've gone through it like we have. You don't know. We were living in a motel over here on Monterey Road. 12 of us in one room. That was where we lived for a week until we started getting people to help us. So when I went to the governor about homelessness, I said, Governor, you got to produce some housing. It can't be about your term or your goal. It has to be about ongoing, forever building housing in California. And you got to unshackle the rules a little bit. And he said, what's that? I said, well, it takes too long. It's too expensive. The land is too expensive. Everything's, you got to work on it. You got to constantly work on it. It's not, it's a problem that's not going away. And I'm dealing with that as the creeks, you know, that we all know. So the governor, a lot of times politicians, it's not, I say it's not about your term of office. It's not about you. It's not about finding a solution before you leave. It's about working with people to make the solution a forever kind of way of helping people and making our state a great state. It's not about you. It's not going to work if it's about you. It just doesn't work that way. That's not the way it works. But there's always going to be people that have needs, like my family. I mean, you know, so it's ethics, right? It's about always having good police protection, always having good fire protection. You know, you can't drop the ball. And I think we dropped the ball on housing. And I was never able to convince any of the governors I served with, 3 of them, Arnold, Jerry, or Gavin, of this solution. By the way, it was endorsed by the whole Senate. Everybody came to the governor, here's our packet, here's our plan. The legislators all supported it. It wasn't approved by the Department of Finance. They said, oh, housing's, you know, you're drifting into areas you shouldn't be involved in. Now, come on.
Yeah, Senator Bell.
So I'm just saying, I mean, I'm giving you
Jamil's speech on housing.
We've
Okay.
been listening to you talk. It's a lot of learning. I know we all appreciate it. This has been great, especially having you here in
It's
person.
about money, right?
It is. And we do
You
have
gotta
a
build the
housing, we have a
housing.
housing item later on if you want to stick around, Jim.
I
You can, if you, we would love
did
to
that
have you
housing
stick
bond, the
around.
last housing bond, I was gone for
Right. No, we would love for you to stick around so we can talk more about housing. So with that, Shally, do we have any public comments on this item? No. So I'll bring it back to the board. As you all know, this year we've tried to be more focused on action items. And so I'll look to Senator Bell and his staff to share with us any templates or information they have. And so what we would encourage each city representative to do is to share this template with your staff.
We got a little handout.
They have handouts.
For all this people, and if you have one you want to give to your staff.
And those remote, we'll figure out how to get it to you as well. But the action item that's obvious is, you know, for us to take this information back to our staff, see if there's support on your councils to agendize it. And I'm sure Senator Bell and or his staff will be happy to attend those council meetings when you're discussing it. I do know for Los Altos, and maybe this is something I can get more information on from you or your staff. We brought it up several months ago and I thought there was a hold on this item. I don't know if there's a hold with regards to moving forward in the ordinance. I'm happy to hear it's moving forward again, assuming it was even stopped. So happy to hear it's moving forward.
So the ordinance that's in here was emailed to all board members.
Yeah.
Great.
Those are just extra handouts you can.
And it has Rosamund's, and it has my contact information in it, so please reach out.
Wonderful. Thank you again, both of you, for being here. Thank you. Okay, we'll move to our next agenda item, which is item number 4, and it's on REAP 2.0. Yes, we're happy there's a REAP 2.0, and we'll get an update from the Planning Collaborative, and I think we're going to start with Mr. Drixel. Is he? Oh. I'll turn it over to you. He's no stranger to us. He's presented to us a couple times before, and so thanks for being here, David. We look forward to this long-awaited update.
Happy to be here, and sorry not there in person, but great to join you online and hoping to be there for one of your upcoming meetings, be there in person. I'm joined by my colleague Sam Dolgoff, who's been a project manager for the Santa Clara County Planning Collaborative, as well as Rob Eastwood, who's one of our steering committee members, planning staff from City of Campbell, to just give a little perspective in terms of how the collaborative works from a staff perspective. We got a quick presentation, but want to get to the Q&A and dialogue. So let me quickly go through some slides, some background. So if we go to the next slide. Just a little bit of background in terms of the collaborative. So I just realized we were looking at these slides, we're coming up on 5 years of the collaborative this October, which time has flown by. This was started actually prior to the RENA cycle. It was very early. We knew that the RENA and the housing development cycle was coming up. Some staff from multiple cities started talking about the potential to get together and have some shared learning. There's been a group up in San Mateo County for a number of years called 21 Elements, and sort of opportunity to replicate that in Santa Clara County and work together across jurisdiction lines. So that started in 2019, and then we were super fortunate that the state gave money to ABAG, and ABAG decided to support county level collaboratives like this across the Bay Area and provided funding for the last 3 years through REAP 1. And I'll talk a little bit about REAP 2, which is will be providing funding through the end of 2025. The point of this is to get housing and planning staff together for shared learning, understand what each of the jurisdictions are working on. The idea is not that we come up with a policy proposal that everybody adopts. Every jurisdiction, every community has its approach that it's adopting or taking forward, but there's a lot of commonality. And the hope is that if we do this well, you all save time and money and actually do better work because you're learning in the process and you're leveraging each other's work to move the ball forward on housing, which is a shared priority across the entire county. Let's go to the next slide. I'll talk a little bit about what we've been up to in the last year. We did come and talk with you in 2023 a couple times. So I think you all know, big priority has been getting the housing elements finished and certified by HCD. And that's been a big lift, much, much bigger lift than in any previous housing element cycle, as you all know. We did some shared engagement across the communities early on in the process. We've been supporting everyone as they've strategized, responding to HCD comments. We had a consultant who helped do affirmatively furthering for housing analysis and then also support on policies. And then in our monthly meetings, we did a lot of dialogue around new laws and strategies for responding to them and providing some shared support templates and slideshow presentations, things like that. One of the big pushes last year was also to create ADU website, and I'll show some examples, some screenshots from that on the next slides. There's been a Grand Nexus study that's kicked off. This is not every jurisdiction, but a number of jurisdictions. I think we ended up with 7 or 8 that signed up to be part of a joint effort to hire one consultant to do the necessary background work to help you set your inclusionary housing policies and or your commercial linkage fees. So big savings by doing that together rather than everyone on their own. One of the example, we at one of our meetings last year, we brought together some developers to hear what was going on in the market from their perspective and what gets in the way and what kinds of things they look for as they look for opportunity sites to build affordable housing. And then we also did an in-person meeting last year and a fall a housing tour, and we're looking to do another in-person meeting this fall. As most of our work has been online, but it's really nice to get together and see each other face to face and have lunch together. So we're making that an ongoing feature of the collaborative's work. Go to the next slide. So a lot of this happens through our monthly meetings. We had our August meeting earlier today, 90 minutes, and we heard from San Jose staff on the tenant preference policy work that they've done. We heard from Campbell on the affordable housing overlay zone. We heard from a representative from Marin County, where they're doing some countywide anti-displacement education and outreach shared across jurisdictions. We send out regular newsletters. We do a lot of focus on understanding new state laws. There's been a lot of them. And if you're a staff person, it can be a little overwhelming. So figuring out what it is you need to be doing at the local level. And we'll provide one example as we talk about ADU work. And then making sure that people are aware of the great resources that are put out by ABAG and that are available through HCD and others to help provide education, support community outreach and dialogue, and to make sure that we're meeting all the state law requirements. So let's go to the next slide. This is the Santa Clara County ADU website, and there's the ADU workbook. This serves all of the jurisdictions. This was one of the things that rose to the top of the priority list last year. These are intended to help homeowners make good decisions about whether they want to build an ADU, and if they do, how to go about the process of figuring out what they're going to build and how much it might cost and how they're going to finance it and connecting with an architect, et cetera. The big challenge of ADUs is an individual homeowner who's doesn't even know what your zoning code is taking on the role of being a developer. So these are resources meant to support their decision-making and understanding of the process. At the end of the day, they still come into your building counters at each jurisdiction for a permit, but this helps them all the things they need to do before they're in your building department, as well as things that happen after, like being a landlord, which a lot of people have never done that before and need the resource and how to approach doing that. Let's go to the next slide. These are just some additional resources we talked with you about these last year. I want to make sure those of you who are new to the group are aware that these are out there as you talk to folks in your community who might be interested in doing an ADU. There's a lot of great tools that are on that website, and your city websites link to this shared website. So it integrates with, but lives apart as a collaborative page. Let's go to the next slide. Another thing that's on there is one of my favorite features is the spotlight stories, because there's a lot of different reasons why people build ADUs, and there's some really inspiring stories about the reasons that people do it and their stories about how they found an architect and did their project and what they built and how it's working out for them, which are really valuable for folks who this is kind of a new idea and they're not entirely sure whether it fits with their lifestyle, or is going to work in their property. So these are just examples of real people around Santa Clara County who've done this, and how that's worked for them. And let's go to the next slide. So we've got a number of things underway for 2024. We had a little bit of a hiatus because there was, as some of you who were on the ABAG board will be aware, it wasn't really clear the REAP 2.0 funding from the state. There was some potential that was going to cut. We were extremely fortunate that the funding to ABAG did not get cut significantly, and within ABAG MTC, the decision was made to continue supporting the collaboratives at a very similar level to what has happened over the last few years. So we have the funding in place. I'll talk about what those numbers are on another slide, but we've got that funding in place. So we've been ramping up to start doing TA, and the TA being technical assistance. And this is all focused on, at this point, housing element implementation. And the state has identified 3 priorities related to that. And I'll talk about those as we get into the next slide. So we've looked at all your housing elements to identify where there are common priorities, had talks with all of your city and county staff who are doing the planning and housing work, and identified some shared priorities going from now through the end of 2025. Let's go to the next slide. So we're going to continue doing the ongoing support, the monthly meetings, making sure everyone understands new state laws as they come out every year. Do things again like the developer roundtable, continue to move forward on the Grand Nexus study that's supporting 7, or I think it's 8 jurisdictions. That's in the final process now. Let's go to the next slide. Some of the other priorities that have been identified are related to tenant and landlord education and outreach, anti-displacement policies and programs. We're having a roundtable next week with staff from both Santa Clara County jurisdictions and San Mateo County jurisdictions, because this is a priority up and down the peninsula. And we're going to look at opportunities where we might even work across the 2 counties to leverage resources and do more together than we might be able to do on our own. We're doing some affordable housing finance training. So a lot of you have put in place programs that are creating local housing funds and helping train staff on how best to think about how you leverage those funds, in addition to the state and federal funds that are available, or sometimes even philanthropic dollars or partner agencies that have land for affordable housing development. So sort of how do you put on your developer hat if you're a local government planner? And then one thing we actually had a conversation earlier today is putting together a middle housing work group, missing middle housing work group. And so that's both middle income housing. How do we create more housing that's affordable to middle income, as well as missing middle as a type of housing that is not a single family home and it's not a big apartment building. So duplexes, triplexes, smaller multi-unit buildings, townhomes, cottage clusters, or even ADUs, sort of what kinds of policies can we put in place to both create more housing diversity and housing choice, and try to make sure that those are affordable to middle or lower income households. Let's go to the next slide. So we've got a pretty big agenda, and one of the things that's on the verge of rolling out, it relates to one of those new state laws, AB 1332. And Sam, do you want to say a few words about this? Because you've been doing a lot of work on making this happen.
Yeah, I'm happy to. So, as part of our budget from last year, we used some of our funding to create an ADU plans gallery, which now any of your jurisdictions can onboard to. Some jurisdictions are already confirmed. A lot of them are thinking about it right now. And we'll be talking with staff about who is going to end up actually onboarding before the end of the year in order to comply with AB 1332, which is the law about pre-approved plans for ADUs. So by January 1st of next year, all of your jurisdictions are going to have to be ready to accept applications for ADU plans for pre-approval. So that basically means plan sets that have been reviewed by your building department, and then can be used by multiple residents across the jurisdiction. They'll still have to go through the normal process after it's pre-approved to get an ADU building permit, but it is supposed to streamline the process for people and make it cheaper for them by being able to use plans that are already designed by local architects. So we will be launching very soon, and it's basically the gallery is a way to look at all of the plans that are pre-approved within your jurisdiction so that your residents can browse them. There's also the ability to add additional plans that may not be pre-approved, just so that there's more choice and options for residents, since, you know, if you have one or two pre-approved plans, those might not work for everyone. Maybe people are interested in some other types of designs that will fit their needs better. And yeah, so I'm happy to answer any questions about that, maybe at the end after David finishes the rest of the presentation.
Thanks, Sam. Let's go to the next slide. I'll just talk a little bit about the funding piece. So one thing I probably should have started with, for those of you who might be new on the board. So we're a small planning practice that are the technical assistance provider for the Santa Clara County Planning Collaborative. It's a little confusing because the name of our practice is Community Planning Collaborative. We're very much into collaboration. But the Santa Clara Planning Collaborative is a project of the Cities Association. So Cities Association holds the contract with ABAG, and then we're hired by the Cities Association to serve all of the jurisdictions together as part of the collaborative. And that includes all the cities as well as the county. So again, it started first with jurisdiction contributions. People said it would be really great to be able to do this. It takes some money to do it. So there was agreement on sort of a tiered structure for jurisdiction contributions to get things going. And then the REAP 1.0 money became available, and that provided a little over $600,000 over 2 years, which is close to $20,000 per jurisdiction when you divide by the 16, which is a nice way to pool resources and do more together than we might be able to do individually. And that focus was on helping everyone get their housing elements done. The REAP 2.0 funding, like I said earlier, is really focused on housing element implementation. It runs through the end of 2025. There's a whole bunch of other things that are funded by REAP 2.0. This is one small part of it, but it's super valuable. And we're very grateful to the ABAG board for approving that funding to continue this work. So it's a similar level of support, a little bit less than what we had the last couple of years, but we're going to be able to do a lot of great things on some of the priorities that we just identified and other things as well. The state does have some goals that everything that we do under REAP 2.0 needs to align with. So it needs to be work that helps to further fair housing, that supports infill and affordability, and reduces vehicle miles traveled. So all the things we're talking about are consistent with those goals, but it's something we'll have to keep in mind as we identify priority activities to work on. One thing to look ahead, and we're not going to talk about it tonight, but we'll come back at a later meeting to talk about whether, if there's desire to continue the collaborative work in 2026, we will need to be going back and looking at jurisdiction contributions, and best to start that conversation sooner than later. As all of you know, budget processes start pretty early, so getting things lined up so that by mid-2025 we have a sense of what that might look like. And again, if we're doing this right, this isn't something additional to what you're doing. This is something to help you do the things that you're already committed to doing, and to do it on a more cost-effective basis than if you all do it independently. So, again, we'll talk about that at a future meeting. Let's go to the next slide. I think we're at the end, and I do want to, maybe before questions, hand it over to Rob to talk a little bit about, he was actually part of the group that started the idea of doing this, and pulled together the initial collaborative, and has been a great member and part of our steering committee over the last few years. Over to you, Rob.
Happy to. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Great. Rob Eastwood, Community Development Director, Campbell. I'm down the hall from Councilmember Bybee, up here in Campbell. So yeah, happy to provide my perspective as community development director. I did in a previous role working for the county, helped get this planning collaborative off the ground. But I'll just say from my perspective, last few years in Campbell, collaborative, outstanding help in number one, getting all the cities across the finish line. I think they're almost all across the finish line in the housing element. I'll just highlight, especially when they hired some technical resources on affirmatively furthering fair housing, something most cities weren't ready for. I think that helps cities out a lot. And then just getting resources together. So to highlight what David said, kind of two things. Return on investment, if each city, and there's tiny cities to big cities, had to invest both in their housing elements to do the work alone. And now it's great we're across the finish line, but I'll just say the work now starts. You have to actively work on producing housing in these programs. And HCD does have a whole code compliance unit that will track cities. But again, for each city, from the tiniest to biggest, to individually invest in these programs where they're common a lot on a lot of the programs across jurisdictions. We just wouldn't get the return on investment that I would see by using the collaborative group that provides these shared resources. So number one, going backwards, I think they were a big help. I know for us in a lot of cities on getting us across the finish line. And two, I'm just looking at our work plan, and I've looked at our work plans. I know with the West Valley cities and others, and it's nice to take a deep sigh of relief on having a certified housing element, but there's still a lot of work ahead. And as David said, I think they're looking at each housing element, looking at where there's a shared need, and there's a lot of areas where instead of say Campbell or Los Gatos or Morgan Hill individually doing something, the collaborative can come in and provide some sort of shared outreach or a shared technical document that saves just a lot of staff time and money. So anyways, I'll stop there, but happy to answer any follow-up questions. Thanks.
Thanks, Rob, and thanks to the rest of the team. It's Samantha. So as usual, we'll open it up for questions, and then take public comments. So let's start with Councilmember Walia.
President Fleiger. Thank you so much to the Planning Collaborative team. All of you have done phenomenal work. And I'm super excited to see that ADU Santa Clara County thing. Everybody knows I've been talking about that in this meeting, City Association, as well as in my city about that. We need to do a lot more of that. So very quickly, REAP 2.0, who is paying for that? Is that coming from ABAG, or is it a requirement for each jurisdiction? And the second part is, what exactly would my city get without paying for it right now? Because I'm seeing nods that it's coming from ABAG. My city of Saratoga is not paying for it.
Correct. It's actually state money that flows from HCD to ABAG. It's part of a big package of funding to ABAG, MTC, and then a portion of that has been applied to supporting the collaboratives. So yeah, it's state money via ABAG.
So what is it doing, REAP 2.0?
Sorry,
2.0.
I missed 2.0 is.
What is my city going to get? What is the benefit for my city to?
What will it fund?
Right. The support you're going to get is support for housing element implementation. So related to anti-displacement work, related to affordable housing tools and financing to support more affordable housing creation. Everything we do will be aligned with those three state goals of affirmatively furthering fair housing, advancing infill housing, and reducing VMT. Those are state requirements related to this funding. And we're just starting the 2024 work plan. We were on a bit of hiatus because of the contracting delays due to uncertainty around funding, but now that's all in place. And we're hitting the ground running on a set of priorities that the city staff have identified through what's been put in your housing elements. Does that help?
Okay. Yeah, that's exactly what I was looking for, because ours just got approved exactly a month ago today. Somebody was asking me right now, so I'm announcing it to everybody. But yes, super thrilled.
Yeah, I was going to say Tina isn't happy at all about it getting approved. I will quickly add two things. One, I just want to highlight the influence that the Cities Association had with getting the REAP 2.0 funded. It was touch and go for many months, and we did a letter. I talked to a couple of people, and really, I mean, we got thanked for the letter we sent as a cities association saying how important REAP 1.0 was to our county and why we also needed REAP 2.0 so that our jurisdictions would not be charged this amount. And I'm still hoping for 2026 that somehow the state continues to fund it, but we're not there yet. The second thing is the purpose of the funds, just to touch on Councilmember Walia's point. It's in each of our housing element updates. All these priorities they're mentioning are already incorporated. So that's those areas in our housing element updates that they can help us with in order to meet the commitments we've made. Mayor Kine.
Yeah, so I really like the idea of and thank you for all the work that you're doing with all of our cities. I love the plans, so the photo gallery of plans that are there. Are those both prefab as well as basically constructed on site?
Yes, both.
And then the other half of that is, when will those plans be released, and is there any charge for anything beyond that for residents to utilize those in the cities that are part of that?
Do you want to respond to that, Sam, or I can?
Yeah, so the way that the gallery works is each of your jurisdictions can have a gallery that you would manage. You would decide which plans to show up in your gallery. You can choose, as many plans as you would like, as few plans as you would like. The gallery gives you the ability to pre-approve them if your building department approves them under the AB 1332 law. And it's basically just a way to collect all the plans together for residents to see. And then the way that it works is that the residents would contact the designers directly to customize the plans for their property. So the designers still own their plans. And really, it's just a way, it's basically a marketplace to view the available plans that you have said that, you want to have in your gallery.
I see. So the plans aren't completely free. If there's assumption that they would be customized on a per site basis. True?
So yeah, so the way that the pre-approval works is that there still has to be customization for a particular property, right? You don't know what the utilities are going to look like. There might be different zoning or hazard rules that you have to follow. So they'll work with a designer for that, but there are some plans that are also free that you can select and use, and those are plans that were right now we have a few on our gallery already from San Diego, and then San Mateo plans are going to be added too. So those are publicly available plans that can be used for free, but they would also still need to be customized for a particular property. So those people will still have to find a designer to help them create construction drawings for the EDU permit process, the building permit process.
Yeah, I'll just clarify those. So the pre-approval is for the building envelope itself, for the building construction plans. But when you come in for a permit, you need to show where is it going to be on your property and how are you going to access it and how is it going to connect to utilities. So there is, even if it's a free plan that you got and you're using it exactly as it was originally done, there's still work you need to do. And everyone will tell you, a homeowner's most positive experience is having a design professional work with them on that versus going into your building department on their own saying, I'm going to use this and I'm going to put it here. And here's my napkin drawing that shows you where I'm doing that. Because this keeps the designers in the loop. You get in touch with the designer. They might charge $500 for the plan. We let them set their pricing, but there are a number of plans that are free. And then they take you through the process to get the permit and get it constructed. But doing that, choosing a standard plan versus doing a custom design process is going to save you at least $10,000 and months of time. So our hope is to have this gallery that's structured so we could have hundreds of plans on there over time. So the more diversity there is, the more likelihood that someone's going to find the plan that works for their site and their needs, their vision of what they're trying to achieve. And again, that's going to save them a lot of money and time. Understanding building ADU is not cheap. So everywhere we can save money, it's worth doing it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So Mayor Montano and then Mayor.
Okay, thank you so much for your presentation. So if the the community planning collaborative, so our city hired a private consultant to do our housing element. So what's the difference between you and them? You know, what would be the advantage or disadvantage? Besides the cost.
Right. So there's a lot of communities hired consultants in addition to the work that the collaborative is doing. There's some base work that the collaborative provided in terms of the base data, and like Rob was saying, that we had a consultant specifically on affirmatively furthering fair housing doing some analysis and then providing advice. So I can't remember the exact number, but there were a number of jurisdictions that we met with the consultant and with your staff to help share experience from other communities about how, issues that had come up, HCD had raised in a comment letter, and how other communities had responded to that. And again, a lot of shared learning between your staff in terms of challenges that they were facing, and discussions at the monthly meetings about, okay, how did you respond to that? And we had actually a number, not a huge number, but a number of consultants who were involved in collaborative conversations over that 2-year period, because it's great shared learning for them too. So yeah, but there's a lot of customized work. This last housing element round was a huge lift. And as you know, yeah.
The other question is, what's the average cost for just a simple ADU?
It varies a lot, but I'm going to say in my head, it's probably about 180, 200,000 up to 450. There's not really an average. If you had a flat site and you chose a simple plan, and you didn't have any issues with soils or site access or utility connections,
Right, okay.
and you used a prefab plan, yeah. So there's a lot of factors.
So I'm still not clear on the REAP 2.0 funding. Does that mean that you help fund folks to build an ADU in their backyard?
No, the REAP 2.0 funding is for the plan, for the work of the collaborative. What we're doing is providing access to plans that if they find a plan that works for them, they could save money by not having to hire an architect to do a custom plan. But there's no funding through this particular program for ADUs. There's some state funding that's available.
And so philosophically, it's great, ADUs are great. However, it doesn't really address the needs of the working poor. You have multi-generational families that have 2 or 3 families in one household trying to make ends meet, and they can't afford the 200,000 or 300,000. Isn't there going to be a program to help those folks? Because right now, this program, the ADU program, is helping people that already have money, and they're probably going to build their house for their family member, not a stranger. So that's when is the time going to come when you're going to be able to help those families that are low income, that own a home, but they have 2 or 3 families living in there, to build an ADU without that high cost?
There are some, yeah, I won't go into the detail now, but there are some programs that jurisdictions have put in place to help support low-income homeowners to become ADU developers, because financing is really challenging, but there are programs available to support that. And we're actually having there's a regional ADU work group that's looking at issues like that.
And that would be great. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor. So we'll do Mayor Mock and then Councilmember Hudez, Vice Mayor, and then we'll close questions just based on the time. Go ahead, Mayor.
Okay, so the city of Los Altos Hills is certified, HCD certified, reached our unit numbers. Reviewed everything. So my basic concern.
Can you hear him, David?
It's breaking up.
Basic concern.
I don't know if that's on my end.
We have to build enough in terms of ADUs to reach the number. So I want to say, first of all, that let me ask one question. What is the next step? Who is the best person that I could possibly speak to regarding ADUs at your organization? Any person, any website. Actually, I'd rather speak to a person.
to understand what aspect of ADUs. I mean, you can reach out to me directly and I can find the right person for you to talk to. Why don't we do that?
I got you. That's good.
Okay.
So the other issue that we have in our city is that 40% of our population has septic tanks. So that is run by the county. And I don't know whether or not you have any experience in that area or not, but I think that this is material, at least for our city.
Yeah, I myself don't have experience, but we can probably find a person who could provide some guidance.
Okay, very good. And with respect to cost, you have prefab models. However, you also have custom-made models. So you also have people that are with your firm, your organization, that can make a customized model, perhaps for a city hall building or something like that.
So just to be clear, we're not an ADU company. We're a planning consulting firm that has helped build a platform to connect homeowners with architects and prefab companies that do ADUs. We ourselves don't do ADUs.
I am enlightened. Thank you very much, John.
Thanks,
Thank you. I'm learning a lot about community planning collaborative, and so this may not be appropriate for your organization, but maybe you could point me to someone else. In Los Gatos, two things. One, we're trying to implement our housing element with a lot of programs. One of the key things is objective standards that will help with SB 330, SB 335 developments. Is that an area that you worked in, or do you think that that's an area where common work could be done? And what I'm talking about is not so much what I would call tape measure standards, but the more difficult standards that balance the development with the character of neighborhoods, things like view, architectural considerations, historic considerations, and even something as simple as height transition, as we've ended up with a situation with 7-story buildings being proposed next to single family residences with a 20-foot setback. And so we're struggling with how do we get some objective standards. Is that an area that you have looked at, or you think there's another organization that can help us?
It's a topic that we've discussed in the collaborative, and not specific within Santa Clara in terms of technical assistance, but there was a regional effort under ABAG that I was involved with. So we were the project manager to help create a objective standards guidebook. Opticos Design was the company that was engaged to develop the handbook, and then we had a group of planning staff from around the Bay Area who helped advise the development of that. And I'm happy to share a link. It's a product that's out there available to support staff and council in understanding what objective standards are, and providing a set of tools to put together customized local standards that meet your local requirements or local expectations and goals. So it speaks to things like architectural standards, and it speaks to different typologies of neighborhoods, and the kinds of standards you might want to consider in those different types of neighborhoods in different contexts.
Great, because those are the more difficult ones than just setbacks. And, I had another question, which is about the getting housing element approved. Is your organization, or is there another organization in the state that is working to educate HCD and improve the consistency of the reviewers, and also help the reviewers understand the differences between communities as well? The ones that are, 80% infill are very different than ones that have significant greenfield. And it does seem like the regulations are there in place, but there's sort of a lack of knowledge of the HCD reviewers. Is there any education toward the state that would help us?
We've helped to facilitate some gathering of reflections from jurisdictions back to the state. We're very careful to avoid becoming an advocacy group. We are funded by state funds, and so they don't really want us to use state funds and then come back and lobby them to change the rules that led to them giving us those funds. So we're not an advocacy group. We do support when jurisdictions want to get together and do some advocacy. So there was actually an effort this last, I don't know, 6 months ago related to the RENA rules around student housing. And so we facilitated some dialogue between jurisdictions, and then a few of them wrote the letter and a number of jurisdictions signed on to it, particularly jurisdictions that have universities present. So Stanford was part of that effort, sort of how those student units are counted both in RENA and then in the housing element. So things like that we help facilitate, but we're ourselves not an advocacy group.
And I'll just add to that as we close this item. ABAG has had a seat at the table because HCD has been doing this review recap of the 6th cycle, what went right, what went wrong, what can we improve. And so this is something I think as a cities association we may consider as a future agenda item where we get this kind of input. I know we've done it already with some of the LAC bills, but just hearing your questions, maybe we take another opportunity to get input. So thanks to all the speakers, thanks for the questions. I see Shali's back. I don't think we have any public comment on this item. And so to wrap up, as usual, we try to end with action items. One, we already have a request. If Shali hasn't already sent it to us, can we please get a copy of your presentation? And then 2, action item for board members. Please check with your city manager and or planning staff to make sure that they're engaged with the planning collaborative. I know a couple cities did that a couple of years ago when they realized the planning collaborative existed and the type of work they're doing, because we want to make sure that our cities are working with and engaged and taking advantage of this currently state-funded program for the cities in Santa Clara County. So thank you again for being here. We're going to move
Pleasure to be here. Thanks for having us.
Thanks, David. Thanks, Rob. Thanks, Samantha. To the next agenda item, which is on the BAFA bond, and I know this is the 3rd or 4th time that we're bringing this item in some form to the Cities Association. For Mayor Turner's purposes, I'll say we're running 10 minutes behind, but he doesn't have the commute clean up, so I think it's okay.
That's right, exactly. Take your time.
Good one. So on the BAFA bond, let me start off by saying that this discussion is not to advocate a position in favor or against the BAFA bond. I've had a couple conversations with council members who asked that question. The purpose of this agenda item is really to address the enabling legislation for this BAFA bond. It's in the government code section that specifically says direct recipient counties have a legal obligation to engage with the cities and get input and feedback in developing their local expenditure plan. And so it has invited us and requires us to have a seat at the table. And so the primary purpose of this agenda item is to kick off the discussion with city representatives. We included 5 different questions in the packet. I think the most important one for purposes of this meeting is number 1, where I know the county staff and the supervisors really want to hear from us. What are the best ways to engage their cities, staff, any local stakeholder groups, and residents? Because as the county kicks off its processes, they want to be able to directly engage with these different groups. And so I'm going to do a round robin, just like how we do joys and challenges at the end of our meeting. You'll see that we have 4 other questions included in the packet. To the extent you already have information related to any of these questions, and I'll go through one by one, let us know. If not, the ask will be for you to take it back to your staff, city manager, and or councils to have this discussion, because again, this is the type of information that the county will need, and included in your packet, it explains the process. Because Orange County, assuming this bond passes in November, we're in a position as a county plus the city of San Jose. I know Vice Mayor Convey is on the line to receive, I think it's $4.5 billion. So that would be a lot of funds coming to Orange County to build housing if it passes. And so we really need to be engaged in this process and be prepared in the event that it does. And I know a lot of us learned a lot from Measure A, as we want to take those learnings and apply them. And the last thing I'll say before I open it up and just go through the questions, the mayor's group led by Mayor Klein submitted a letter. The executive committee for the Cities Association also submitted a letter. So we sent 2 letters to the Board of Supervisors. And the main message in those letters is we recognize we don't know if the bond is going to pass in November. We recognize that this local expenditure plan is not due until February 2025, but notwithstanding those 2 things, because it requires our cities to be engaged and because we want to benefit from any bond funds that may come our way if this is successful, we want to be at the table, we want to be engaged, we want to start working with you now so you can understand our needs. And I will tell you, President Ellenberg, Deputy County Executive Consuelo Hernandez, they've been very positive in their response to us. So, I do envision a very positive relationship going forward, working together. So with that, I'm going to open it up for questions. Of course, the first question we have is, what are some of the best ways to engage with the cities? So let me, and I'm going to call on everybody. If you have no comments, that's fine. But we really want to take notes because this is the message the subcommittee, if approved later on, will take back to the board and to President Ellenberg. So who wants to get us started?
I have a quick question on the planning collaborative before we start.
Oh,
do they charge if we connect with them?
She did the gotcha.
So basically it's a pot of money and the state says you have to spend it on certain things, affordable housing, infill development, and reducing BMT. But your planning staffs are helping them develop the priorities. So you can also help them develop the priorities. So if you just call them, no, it's going to be covered. Will they do a project? No, because but it is really there working with all of your planning.
And even if our housing element has already passed, we still want us to work with them. Okay.
Well, so there is money to spend. And that is really one of their overarching goals, is to help all of the cities in the county with the implementation of their housing elements.
Because Carmen, REAP 1.0, the first round of funds we received a couple of years ago, that helped with developing the housing element update. So that's why this is 2.0, where now that hopefully all our cities have or HEUs adopted, they can now help us implement it. All the things we committed to do, these 3 priority areas, they can use those funds. We don't have to pay them extra to work with our staff to figure out how to meet these commitments.
And so it kind of just I know we're pressed for time, but 2 things. We kind of got off on this AMU sidetrack. That was a priority that was developed by planning staffs. And what they're trying to show you is, look, this was your priority and we've created this and that all of you can use. And that's how your money was spent. And so I forgot what the other thing was, but
that's right. Thank you. Okay, going back to that.
But Carmen, please let your staff or your city managers
I was just texting them.
Yeah. Engage.
Just text.
And I'll just quickly say, I was a planning director when the collaborative was created.
Oh, there you are.
I
knew he was here.
Yeah, so I'll bring you one.
Okay, great.
I was just texting.
All right, so let's bring it back to Buffalo, but great question, Carmen. Who wants to get us started? No one? Larry, let's have you kick us off.
Sure. So as far as engaging with, with the cities, definitely, and it's a mixture of city managers, and the city managers are somewhat engaged, but planning staffs, much like the planning collaboratives, of how they can do that. I look at Measure A, and it was piecemeal on how the counties interfaced with the cities. And ultimately, we don't broker affordable housing. We zone for it and help, we do housing, from Sunnyvale standpoint, we do housing mitigation funds. If there are barriers for that developer, that affordable housing developer to move forward, often we don't know about that. They're working in the background, trying to do state tax credits or other funding sources. But how there's a, let's say, a segment of affordable housing developers that don't ultimately, how they interface with the county, the cities don't know, and whether or not we can apply pressure or anything of that nature. So I look at different groups, the cities, council, so it's the councils, the staffs and all that giving feedback. It's the developers themselves on what worked and what didn't work for like Measure A. I don't think we've ever really heard that. We've heard, I joined the Measure A Oversight Committee only about a year and a half ago, and we really don't hear from the developers. We hear from Office of Supportive Housing. So it is kind of interesting from that standpoint that, it was how they ended up getting to the end, but what their concept was for oversight from a county. I've heard stories that it's been problematic, and we've had lots of affordable housing that's been built in our city without county funding because they didn't want to deal with the county. As much as they would love their money, sometimes it wasn't worth it. So, from a Measure A standpoint, we had one project, $2 million of a $144 million project. So Measure A funded $2 million of 144. The city put in $26.5 million for that $144 million project. Why the county couldn't make that go faster? Why didn't they just set aside more money? I don't know. And it's getting the right people in the room. So it's the cities, it's the developers, and then you have lots of groups from lots of advocate groups, and that goes from local, from a city by city standpoint. We have those, as well as kind of regional, the SV at homes, that there's lots of those advocates also, and having them talk about that. But that's at least who we should be engaging with from a quick standpoint.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
Becky, I'm gonna go to Tina and then.
I have a question, but I want a little clarification.
Okay, I got this back.
Okay, thanks. Yeah. So, but Klein, you said 26 million the city put out of the 144 million. So I have a different concept that I'm trying to clarify, get clear in my head. So the project, let's say, was $144 million. When you say your city put 26 million, are you saying taxpayer or the city funds?
The city funds, so housing mitigation funds that we take on every office building being built, we set aside, and we ended up giving them 13 million in pre-development and construction costs, and we bought the land that they're going to be built on, so they didn't have to deal with the land issues. And from a city standpoint, we have the long-term control of that land, so it's permanently affordable housing, depending upon whether or not they tear it down or whatever. We have a stake in that game going forward as the land values continue to grow.
Okay, perfect timing for me to bring a completely different perspective. That's why I say we are one large family in here in the Santa Clara County, and that's why Cities Association is fabulous. The perspective in Sunnyvale and the situation is very different from what a small city would face, like my city of Saratoga. And I'll tie this back to a couple of years ago. In fact, Javed used to bring this up. Small city situations are very different. So it's a perfect example. There will be differences between Montessori and Saratoga, but I know for a fact that residents in the city of Saratoga at some point are going to say that we are going to be funding a lot more from our tax base because of the assessed property values. What is the benefit to our city? Going back to your point, the city cannot make the affordable housing happen in the city. There may or may not be a project that is worth it for the developer because the land is a lot more expensive to begin with. So the argument from my residents, my constituents, I've heard from just a handful so far, but once the mayor comes forward in the ballot, they're going to say, we are putting in so much money, we are getting impacted by HCD and state, and that's not the issue. But the point is, what is it we are getting? What is our allocation being so high, but what's the benefit for us? And that's the bottom line question. We pay so much more. My city's assessed value is going to be quite a bit. I was looking at some very rough numbers. I have a feeling every year we're going to be paying about $4 million. And what is my city going to get if we can't even get a project? And it's possible we cannot get 100% for a project. So because we can't meet the numbers, then we get punished by HCD. That would be something I think we need to bring forward in this conversation. And I'm sure there are Los Altos Hill situations and Montes Reno situations. And then the next year, I think I start thinking of Los Gatos and Los Altos in some ways. Subtle differences, right, in every city.
No,
That's the
valid
perspective.
feedback and input, and this is what the county is looking for as well. I'm gonna go to Matthew, then Margaret. Where we're all familiar with Measure A, and to use Larry's word of piecemeal. I think one of the things they would want to hear from us is how we think these funds should be distributed to the different cities, as opposed to how it was maybe done under Measure A, where, you know, a lot of cities felt like they got maybe at most one project out of the Measure A funds. So this is great feedback, because I agree with you, residents are going to want to hear how will it benefit their city based on how much they're putting in. Matthew?
Yeah, I'm gonna jump to questions 2 and 4 as well. But by the way, on the engaging the city, I'm disappointed that Los Gatos didn't sign the letter. I went back and we will bring this to our council. I discussed it with our town manager. We're going to have a session on specifically on how we can provide some input. Regarding 2 and 4, which is how should funds be distributed and what are the greatest needs, I think that it would be really helpful to make sure we don't have a one-size-fits-all solution here, and that we have some sort of, just like ADUs, have some sort of pre-configured project types that would fit different communities, ones that are maybe much more infill kind of projects. So that would be the suggestion, is that we work on some sort of pre-configured models that would fit the smaller communities.
I get it, right? So we're saying to the counties when they're developing the local expenditure plan, ensure that the potential recipients of the fund aren't defined one way, right? It needs flexibility so that cities like Montessorino, Los Gatos, Los Altos can also get those funds, even if it's not.
And for us to do the work and define the way that those could help our communities get projects, you know, that we could implement.
Margaret.
Thank you. Yeah, so I just came back recently from a study tour of Vienna and social housing, and you know, they have a very different system, but I think there's some things that we could try to apply, and I'm excited about the possibility with BAFA because we really get to start something new. In terms of like what your question, Tina, one of the things that and I know some of our cities that do this is acquiring land to then build affordable housing on. So maybe that's something that, you know, the smaller cities could look at is the city, and it's going to take some, you know, staff time and whatnot, but that might be something, is to look at whether you can acquire land that then you can use later on for building affordable housing. So I think there are many different strategies that could be looked at. So it's not just, you know, waiting for a project to come in, but it's like there's many different pieces to it, right? So you know, I think it would be good to just brainstorm like what are some of these strategies, and then putting that forth in the, like when we talk about the expenditure plan, so that we can be as flexible and as inclusive in different ways of getting to, you know, to actually getting more affordable units. So that's one thing. I will say with us, we were quite successful with the Measure A. We had what we did is we went in and we talked to the county staff and said, we have this many projects, and we actually have 9 projects, affordable housing projects in the pipeline. And so then we did this MOU and got, I believe, $80 million. And so we have guaranteed a certain amount for each of these projects. So that's, again, another strategy that, you know, we could talk about more and flesh out more. as a possibility. So I think we've all tried different things, and it would be worthwhile for us as, you know, a group to sit down and say, okay, this is what we've done, best practices, and maybe come up with a list of ways that we can get to building more units. So yeah, I would just offer that I think, you know, there are possibilities out there.
So great points, Margaret, and you touch on a point that I've heard from other council members, which is Mountain View was able to meet with county staff and say, these are the projects. And so I think the ask going forward with the BOFA bond funds is to have our transparent, uniform system. So all cities know, if the process is for city staff to go to the county staff and say, these are our projects, then let us all know that. And then on the buying land, which I really appreciate because that's what we did with Measure A funds in Los Altos. We have the county buy the land and then we're able to build. So they use Measure A funds to buy the land and we're able to build our first, well, so we need to break ground, but it's getting there. I want to go to the room in San Jose. Any comments on the questions we have here about engaging with your cities? Any questions? Rosemary, Kathy, JR. And did we lose Mayor Bybee?
Yeah, exactly.
Nothing, JR?
There you go.
I just want to echo what Margaret just mentioned in terms of being a little bit more proactive. And I think that, you know, the cities have started to want to know a little bit more as to how distribution of any funds or having a funding plan will happen. But I think that, you know, engaging the county early and often and early is going to be critical. So, you know, sort of like trying to do that now and kind of in anticipation will help a lot along the way.
Thank you, Rosemary.
Yeah, this is Kathy. So I know Mayor Gilmore signed on to the letter, which I'm glad that she did. But we have not had a discussion as a council or with our staff on this particular on the BAFA bond. So I really can't contribute anything right now. I'm sorry, but I really appreciate the feedback that I'm hearing from the other members of the Cities Association.
Thanks, Kathy. Javed?
Thank you. Measure A was a sales tax measure, right? Was there,
Oh, it was a housing bond measure.
was it a housing bond? It says tax assessment on the property taxes?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Some of those. So basically the bond, what's going to happen is all the properties are going to be taxed. So the issue that Councilmember Valle brought forward has to do with properties that have a higher valuation in the smaller cities. Our city manager gave us a number, I don't know if it's accurate or not. He said if it's $1 million property, you get $5,000 extra in property tax in this bond. Does everybody know what the actual number is going to be for $1 million bond?
I actually have.
0.5% extra for property tax, or how much is it?
I have it.
Oscar has some.
Sorry, hi everyone, Oscar Castro, so Valley Rising Action. On average, for about $1 million value property, that property tax is going to be somewhere around $100, I believe.
I pulled it up. It's $19 per 100,000. $19 per 100,000.
So just really wanted to note that the idea of $1 million property having an additional $5,000 property tax is not accurate.
$19 per 100,000.
And I was getting excited and my city manager actually.
Is it the same for commercial? Commercial,
Yes.
all the same flat?
Yes, same rate, the $19.
Okay. But in any case, the smaller cities, properties are going to be worth more.
Yes.
Our average property is about $3 million to $5 million. So it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be, but it's a pretty high number. And our city mayor was really excited when when Mayor Klein asked all the mayors to send a letter, he called a special meeting at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, so we had to go just to approve him signing the letter. So he was really excited. Then our vice mayor went to a meeting and he was told, Maurice, you know, forget it, you're not gonna get anything, go away, you got nothing to do with it.
It shouldn't be that way.
Huh?
It shouldn't be that way, and
Well,
that's.
yeah,
And that's why we're going to address it.
So I mean, he was
Also,
basically said, you're not gonna get anything. I said, okay, well, I'm going to a meeting, we'll figure it out. My thought is one of the things that you guys are asking for an ADU committee. I'd recommend at least have some small city people on that ADU committee to put that together so that we're somewhat represented.
And that's item B, but we'll come back to that ad hoc committee. Okay. Anybody else?
Yeah, I support that small cities represented in the ad hoc committee. And I would also say, going back to what Mayor Klein was saying, you were talking of getting some money from the housing mitigation funds from some other office projects.
We said it, so we charge office developers.
Yes.
To put into housing mitigation for all projects in our city.
Thank you. And so that's what I was coming to. Sorry, I didn't write down the whole thing. In cities like Saratoga, we don't have those opportunities. And to be able to get the money to buy a piece of land is also because it's more expensive. So there have to be some other options for smaller cities like ours. Montessori, a different scale, Saratoga, a different scale, Los Altos Hills. That's kind of what I've been thinking the last 3 days. Right. So it could be a monetary incentive to bring some of that money back. I don't know what it is. I don't have the answers. I started looking at it first as answers, then I realized, no, maybe I don't have the answers, but people who are part of this ad hoc committee need to be able to intuitively realize what works in Sunnyvale, not to pick on you, seriously, just a different story, is not going to work in Saratoga or Montessori, something very different. And maybe it's a completely different answer that we need for smaller cities like ours. That's the point I've been trying to make today.
No, and as our assistant, the city manager knows, Los Altos just started, we created a housing fund. There's no way we're gonna get to the amounts we need to start building our own housing, but we started, right? And it's a housing fund, and I'm sure he can explain how it works. But so yes, there are different ways to do this, and we're jumping to the ad hoc committee, which I'm going to go to just because of time, to explain the proposal for the ad hoc committee, and I'm glad to see Javed raised his hand. So the idea of the ad hoc committee is a lot of things are happening quickly. We have the meeting with the Board of Supervisors on August 27th, and there are other meetings where they want to hear from cities, how to engage with them, what's in the pipeline. And so this ad hoc committee would serve in that role. Basically, we would be a conduit. We're not an advocacy group, we're not taking positions. We just want to make sure when all these meetings are taking place, we have city voices from the Cities Association representing your views and input. The city attorney has confirmed, and she's right here, and I keep calling you city attorney. Cities Association. The Cities Association attorney has confirmed that we can use the process of, we clearly didn't expect answers to all these questions today. If you have council meetings, if you talk with your city managers and or staff, and you have information in response to any of these 5 questions, please send them to Jani and Shali, and they're going to compile this feedback on an ongoing basis and provide it to the ad hoc committee. So we'll just be representing your voices. You know, as Tina said, we may represent 3 different voices on one issue, and that's our role. It's not to advocate for one thing over the other, but what we'll all be uniform on is the fact that we want to make sure whatever local expenditure plan gets adopted, it does ensure that all our cities benefit from the bond funds if it passes. Any questions on the ad hoc? Oh, one more thing the attorney told me. So ad hoc committee, it would last for a year and or at the time that the local expenditure plan is adopted, whichever is earlier, because as an ad hoc, as we all know, we're all on council, can't be more than a year. But if the local expenditure plan gets adopted in February, then we would disband the ad hoc committee. So it's very short term, and we would bring back a report at every meeting. And if the attorney approves it, maybe we can send a memo between meetings so everybody knows what's going on. If there are meetings, for example, if there are different groups like SB at Home that's holding a public forum, the subcommittee would send out an email saying, please get your staff, yourselves to attend this meeting so we can all show up in numbers and advocate for our cities. This is a big deal, right? We have huge reader numbers that we need to meet, and this is an opportunity if it passes for us to do that. And so we want to make sure our needs are very clear for your projects in the pipeline, the different approaches, as Margaret mentioned. We want all of that to be considered as the county adopts its local expenditure plan. So any questions on the ad hoc subcommittee? So myself and Larry Klein have volunteered to be on the subcommittee, and we thought 3 would make sense because we don't want a Brown Act, potential Brown Act violation.
Not a violation, you just don't want to have it configured so that it would become a meeting of the executive committee.
Exactly, thank you, Jen. So Margaret, Hong Wei, and Tina were also on the executive committee, unfortunately cannot be on this subcommittee. So it would be Larry, myself, and our plan today was to open it up to see if we had any volunteers to be our 3rd subcommittee member. I see Matthew raising his hand, so let's go to Matthew.
I was going to suggest for smaller cities, I think a good representative would be either Sandy Knock or Javed Bilai. And I'm thrilled that I cannot be. I would not want to be. No, there's also another reason. I think these 2 persons bring a lot of perspective from their professional background. And I know they can represent Saratoga. So I'm speaking for Saratoga. I am not the right fit for this specific project. I would also say that. And that's my suggestion.
You can have it for 5 people. You could be on it too.
No, because our executive committee has 5 members.
Okay, so
But you only have 2 of the executive. Well, as long as you don't have the same members from, you don't have a majority of the members of the executive committee, you're not having a meeting of the executive.
So we could have up to 6 members. If I'm doing the math right, with 14, 6 or 7, let's do 6, because I don't know. 6 members on this ad hoc committee.
Yes, and as long as you don't overlap who's on the executive.
So Margaret, Hung, and Tina. Okay, so this is even better because if there are hands, volunteering, I'm going to go to JR. Are you volunteering, JR?
So I am. I just want to make sure that I'm actually eligible since I'm here today in my capacity as an alternate.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, it's more of that. It's more whether or not it works for San Jose or.
Yeah, so JR, it would have to work for your council since you're the alternate. We can't tell you if your primary would prefer you not to or for you to do it.
I can guarantee you that Mayor Mohan would not care.
Okay, since we have clear direction to go up to 6, let me see how many volunteers we have. So we have JR, we have Larry, myself, Stan, Javed. I think we can accommodate 1 more. Matthew, are you jumping in?
I would like to.
And so I just want to set expectations about the ad hoc committee. We're going to have to be nimble because there'll be meetings that we hear about because we're not an official body. I don't think we all have to show up, but just so you know, this meeting is happening. Can we all please show up and voice our positions on behalf of all cities? We're not just showing up as Los Altos, Los Gatos, or Montserrat. We're really trying to be the voice of all cities. Going back to you, JR.
No, I just wanted to get clarity on that. Thank you.
Okay, great. So do we get a motion to?
So I have a point of clarification. What is this ad hoc committee supposed to do? What's the purpose of it?
The purpose of the ad hoc committee is to be the conduit between the cities, the county, and any other groups that are meeting to discuss the BAFA bond and the concerns of the cities related to the BAFA bond. Because there are different people.
It's just.
We're not, and in this group, I will tell you, so it is not advocating in favor or against the bond. It's being prepared if the bond passes, that the local expenditure plan that will determine how the funds are distributed, that the cities benefit. If it fails, but if it passes, we want to make sure that we had the opportunity to work with the county to make sure we are benefiting. The process, how the funds are distributed, the pipeline projects we have for. Yes.
Would the charge also include providing information to all the members of the cities association? There is this meeting, it's another way to distribute information to the city association members.
So, I have a question. How frequently would this ad hoc committee may need to meet? And I'm assuming, again, I'm raising this question so that people who have volunteered, I'm thrilled I cannot, and as I said, I'm not the right person for this. It's, I assume some of these meetings could be hybrid, like Zoom/in person, but how frequently do you think in the next few months this ad hoc committee may need?
So I'm sure we'll decide to meet over the next 2 months as a group. I think the question that we'll answer as we go along is how many meetings we have to attend.
Okay.
Right? And that we're just available, we'll let the county know, we'll let everybody know we have this, because they want to, matter of fact, someone said the Cities Association is the right organization since it has city representation. I also reached out to the Mayor of Gilroy to let her know this was happening, because even though they're currently not a part of the Cities Association, I still want their input. So it's really just being the voice. And then next week, the city managers meet, and so we plan to also go to the city managers group so they know what's happening and the role of this ad hoc committee, because they also need to be engaged in this process. And they're the knowledgeable ones about the projects, the process, and what would work for each city. So you can also please let your city managers know that this is happening.
Just to clarify from a meeting standpoint, all these meetings, these can be completely hybrid as an ad hoc, correct? It needs to be.
I think so. Double check.
Just clarifying from the legal standpoint. I think that's the case, but.
I think so, but they just look at that.
Okay, I appreciate that.
We're also waiting on new legislation.
Yes.
It's 9:12. I apologize that we're running a little bit late, so I'll look for a motion to form this ad hoc committee.
I'm happy to move.
Thank you, Mayor Klein. Do we have any public comment on this item?
None online.
In the room? See none.
Okay. I move the formation of the ad hoc committee. The role, as has been explained earlier, the goal is, and please correct me if I'm incorrect, as I need to. Generally speaking, the goal is to look at the local expenditure plan so that it is of benefit to all the cities in our county, as well as to be the voice of every city, because the situation is going to be different in every city. The members who have volunteered, Mayor Klein, Councilmember Flyger, Mayor Mock, Councilmember Elahi, Vice Mayor Cohen, and Vice Mayor Hudas.
We have a motion.
Second.
Just to add on it, would you send a letter to the whoever is running this bond thing that this committee has been formed?
Yes, so we already told President Ellenberg that we're thinking about it, so we'll send a formal letter.
And in my motion, I'd like to add that they keep the Cities Association board informed. This may be, I'm assuming they're going to be meeting more than once a month, quite possibly. So it would be good to get some kind of an email update or something. Yes, thank you.
So motion amended. Do you accept the amendment? Great, Charlie.
Motion made by Moya, seconded by Klein. I'll call you by cities. Campbell is no longer online. Cupertino,
Aye.
Los Altos,
Yes.
Los Altos Hills,
Yes.
Los Gatos,
Aye.
Milpitas,
Aye.
Monte Sereno,
Aye.
Morgan Hill,
Yes.
Mountain View, yes. San Jose,
Yes.
Santa Clara,
Yes.
Saratoga,
Aye.
Sunnyvale.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you so much, Charlie, and thanks everybody, and we'll do our best to represent the cities. Okay, we'll move to our next agenda item, which will be our legislative action committee update. And if you need a couple of minutes, I'm going to jump to see if we have a city managers association update from or assistant city manager from Los Altos.
Gabe is on vacation, as a lot of city managers are, so they will be moving until next week.
Any questions for Anthony? And I right, so they're meeting next week. Are you ready? Okay, so I'll turn it over to Chair Walia to give the update and take possible action.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to start by thanking Los Altos for your support for the Legislative Action Committee work,
Anthony
especially from,
specifically.
I believe you are the one who helped us with that. So all the work that the Legislative Action Committee has done this year, we have so far sent 11 position letters, and all of those are now updated on the city station, Santa Clara County website. It's good to see the work we have done and also have a quick reference point. With that, I'm going to move into what we did today. We had two wonderful guest speakers. We had Assemblymember Gail Caroline, and we had Carly Shelby from Townsend Public Affairs Group, TPA. I may be wrong with the firm name. Townsend Public Affairs. Yes, that's what I said. Okay. There were two bills that we voted on. One is AB 2513. That is by Assemblymember Gail Caroline. It's about the gas appliances ban. And sorry, a lot of discussion. We supported that bill, and I would like to, I'm seeing there are some members here who were not there. So just very quickly, this is basically a warning label on the gas stoves and ranges to be manufactured or sold online on or after January 1, 2025, or sold in a store on or after January 1, 2026. And Assemblymember Pellerin's position is coming from an issue related to the air pollutants health issue-wise, not to be confused with something else. I'm not going to bring it up so that it doesn't raise questions right now. And if there are any questions on that, I think most of us are familiar with this. We have talked about this directly and indirectly a few times this year. If not, I would like, should I take a motion right now, or should I do both of those? Okay, I'll go.
It might be easy since
You do both. Yeah. So the second bill that we at LAC took a position on was SB 1130. It's the Bradford bill, which allows households with less than 3 people to enroll in the FERA low-income bill assistance program. It has been supported by practically quite a long list of organizations and couldn't find any opposition, and therefore the LAC committee also decided to support it. It is just being supported to the low-income assistance where it's really needed to smaller families. Any questions on that? Okay. Before we take a vote, I just want to share information with you. Some of you are also on the LAC committee, so you may remember that I sent an email this morning, which is really forwarding the Cal Cities email that came out yesterday, just before 5 o'clock. And I know with busy schedules, not everybody would have had time to look at it. But the highlight of that was that the legislative session began again August 5th. And at the end of this month, the bills are going to be finalized and voted on by the legislature. And by the end of September, the governor is going to be signing them. So tonight really was the last meeting where we could have any meaningful advocacy position to be taken. There were 5 or 6 hot bills, which from the Cal Cities email from yesterday, which also aligned with the priorities taken by this board, Cities Association Board, earlier this year,
And I was fortunate to have President Fliger attend that meeting because main LAC person wasn't there. And so in the interest of time, she went through some of those bills, and most of those bills, some of those housing bills we have already taken a position on in this vote earlier this year, I believe March or April, supporting or opposing or requesting amendments. And some of those bills are very similar to the ones. So both of us, Nisa and myself, will be working together. Per our bylaws, we are allowed to send position letters on bills where this board has already taken a position on earlier in the year. This happens precisely because of the situation we ran into yesterday. There is no time to agendize anything like that. So that's an FYI I wanted to share with all of you. Stay tuned. If something like that happens, we will be sending position letters to the whole board, and we work very clearly with Jenny. Just rest assured.
Or Andrew.
Or Andrew. Yeah, just rest assured. I see that look on
I
your
know.
face. And thank you. And so back to the two bills that the LAC supported, AB 2530, which is coloring, labeling the gas appliances, and SB 1130, Bradford bill to help with the low income. If there were no questions, do I have a motion to support those two in alignment with what LAC
Should
did?
accept the LAC recommendation to support.
Thank you. Thank you. So, no, thank you. Let's, should we take public comment for that? Okay, thank you. So the request is to take LAC recommendation on the two bills. Do I have a motion?
I move to take the LAC recommendation on those two bills.
Thank you. Do you have a second? Second. Thank you. Shelley, can you have a roll call?
Sure. Motion to accept LAC recommendations to support AB 2513 and support SB 1130 by Frida, second by Alaki. Call you by city. Cupertino,
Oh, I forgot. Aye.
Los Altos,
Yes.
Los Altos Hills,
Yes.
Los Gatos,
Aye.
Milpitas,
Aye.
Monte Sereno,
Aye.
Morgan Hill,
Yes.
Mountain View. Aye. San Jose,
Yes.
Santa Clara,
Yes.
Saratoga,
Aye.
Sunnyvale.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimous.
And great job, really, thank you. I watched you push through these bills at the meeting earlier today, so outstanding job.
Thanks. There was a lot to go through.
I know, and you got it done before 7. Thank you.
You helped. Thank you.
All right, so moving on, executive director update. Any updates, Shali?
Super quick. Membership dues invoices went out. We've already started collecting the dues, so thank you all very much in advance. And just really quickly, there's been a request for a roster of the board members of the City Association, which would include emails and phone numbers. And before I put such a roster out, I wanted your permission to give out your phone number. And if there's a particular phone number you'd like me to use.
Who's the roster for?
It's for the board members.
It's for the board members. It's an internal roster.
But it's good to know, because currently the intent may be for internal purposes.
Right.
But it's an easy board email roster.
And it's hard to say it's not public record.
Yeah. So maybe we should have each board member reach out to Shali directly to say if you're comfortable sharing it, knowing full well it could become public. I think most of us already have city email addresses and city phone numbers. And so if you're to add your personal, that's something, each of you would have to decide on your own and work with Shali and be comfortable sharing that information and knowing that it may go public. So we'll have each board member, Shali, maybe you can reach out to
What
them.
I'll do is I'll send an email line copying everyone, and then you can reply back to me with the number that you're comfortable with.
You probably want to ask for two numbers, one for your use and one for public.
Okay.
So that way you can give your number, but the city number would be the one for public. Basically. Keep it clear.
Thank you, that's it.
Thanks, Shali. So we'll end as we normally do with joys and challenges. Who wants to get us started? Tina?
My joy already announced, July 8th, Our housing element finally got certified. Thank you for bearing with me for the last 2+ years. I think about 3 years you've heard from me. My city did go through an extra long process. We were one of the first few to submit. That's a fact. Yes, and it took 2+ years, same set of housing opportunity sites, not one change.
Thank you, Tina.
And it was approved. So
Congratulations, thank you, congratulations. Anybody else would like to share? Go ahead, Matthew.
Community center dreaming workshop that we held. We had 650 people respond to our survey, and we had 90 people show up for a workshop to say, what do we want in our new community center?
Maybe workshops are a great way to engage with your residents.
Yes.
I also attended the workshop, it was really good. I think we've got a really good community going. It will be a great project. Tina's happy her think fast. She started early. That's the first thing she did. I'm not happy I was fast, but I'm happy. We had to do things you should have had to do. That's a different story. The thing I'm excited about is an email I sent out to everybody about this compassion group that is brings compassion to you. They go through high schools and colleges, and they hold symposiums and stadiums where they're basically working on mental health. I'm requesting, if possible, to have them come in and present.
So thanks for that, John. And as you know, the process is Shali and I will bring it to the executive committee where we form the agenda, but it's on our list. Yeah. No, thank you.
As the liaison to our technology committee in Los Altos Hills, I requested that a presentation be made on cybersecurity. We advertised it. We had a number of people put it together. Had 100 people in the room plus people on Zoom. It was the best presentation that I've seen on cybersecurity. Almost 2 hours long. I think that if anybody's interested, really, I may have a slide deck on it. I want this particular piece to be circulated as much as possible because I believe that artificial intelligence is exacerbating the abilities of certain criminals to be able to maybe make themselves us, our voice, or maybe able to make emails from a certain location pretending to be mayor of Los Altos Hills. So I am so happy.
Yeah, I'll be happy to forward that.
And if we have, as you know, we get requests for our agenda regularly, but if we have space on an agenda in the coming months, maybe we can add it as an informational item, have someone present, give them 10 minutes to present. So I'll discuss it with the executive committee to see if we have space for it.
Well, it's all so 10 minutes is not to do it. The slide deck is fine, and maybe Q&A for 10 minutes.
Okay, so slide deck 10, we'll discuss it at the executive committee and figure it out.
I want to do a shout out to all of our city council members. We unanimously approved a 1/4% sales tax. Actually, it's a reauthorization. It's not a new tax. It's just carrying it on. Because, you know, it's the economy, we live in a global economy and things are getting volatile, so it's going to happen. We always are a fiscally responsible city. We want to make sure that we have that funding for public services.
We are doing a kickoff on October 20th for Healthy Morgan Hill. It's an initiative we're bringing forward, much around like blue zones. If you're familiar with blue zones projects, this is really, we're calling it Healthy Morgan Hill, kicking that off October 20th.
You're good.
I'm good.
No, happy city.
Oh, actually, no.
Oh,
There was something.
oh,
Sorry.
the drones.
Sorry, no, and well, the drone show. The drone show was fantastic. We'll see. I'm guessing a lot of drone shows next year for July 4th. But NLC chose us as one of their NLC's 100-year anniversary was this year, and so they're doing a 100 city roadshow, and they chose us as one of their cities to highlight. So they were in Sunnyvale last Saturday to take some photos. So it was good.
I'm jealous.
But your city hall is something to like.
Yeah, absolutely. So they did our downtown, our pedestrian zone and our city hall. That was enough for their hour and a half that they visited our city. Yeah.
Margaret.
We are on a 2-month summer break until the end of August. Nothing going on.
I know, 2 months. It was great.
It's gonna be.
JR, Rosemary, Kathy, Joyce, and challenges. We miss you guys in person.
Anyone have a challenge or a joy to share?
Our city unanimously passed to put on the November ballot a $400 million bond measure. So just the fact that it was unanimous was a miracle, but we'll see how it goes. So wish us all the best.
Wow, a lot of bond measures and tax measures on the November ballot. Rosemary, JR?
Well, we're not going to have any, we considered this week whether or not we would do a parks tax measure, but we decided to defer it to perhaps 2026. So we're not moving forward with that.
Thank you.
We completed our housing element rezoning, so we are joining the compliant group.
Yay.
Yay, congratulations. All right, with that, again, Mayor Turner, thanks for hosting us.
You don't need to rush off.